Hey everybody, so we're going to be covering the last section of Standard 1. We're going to be talking about the creation of the mid-Atlantic colonies or the middle colonies. Those would be the ones in the gold color right in the middle on your map. And again, we're going to talk about sort of the same things, the climate in the mid-Atlantic colonies and how that's going to impact how they make their money, their economy, right? Maybe the reasons why they were established, and then also their relationship with the Native Americans. So let's take a look at that. So the mid-Atlantic colonies, or sometimes referred to as the middle colonies, consisted of New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware. And one of the characteristics of these middle colonies was that they all had really good harbors and river systems, okay? So that means that if you lived in Pennsylvania, for example, that there was a river that ran through Pennsylvania that would allow farmers to ship their goods back to the East Coast to those port cities, okay? So good harbors and good river systems was really important to the economy of the middle colonies, okay? So the Hudson River, the Delaware River were like those highways into, as you go inward, westward into those colonies, right? So that they could move those goods. Middle colonies would trade with the Indians. They would trade furs with the Indians in exchange for goods, things like iron tools and weapons, different things like that. They also grew crops in the middle colonies. They had sort of a temperate or sort of a middle of the road climate. So not only did they build stuff, right? And make stuff, but they also grew stuff. So middle colonies kind of did a little bit of everything, right? They're sometimes called the breadbasket colonies because lots of grain was grown there. Wheat was mainly grown in the middle colonies and then shipped back to Europe, right? So those harbors in places like Philadelphia, New York City became major commercial hubs. So what we mean by that is all of this stuff that they were growing and making, they would ship it downriver to places like New York or Philadelphia or wherever it was, and they would put them on ships to England to sell their resources, okay? So middle colonies kind of did a little bit of everything. They grew wheat, they grew grains, and they made things as well, okay? Out of all of the colonial regions, the middle colonies had the best relationship with the Native Americans, okay? Pennsylvania was founded by a guy named William Penn, okay? And one of the reasons why he established it was because he was looking for a place that was more religiously tolerant or was more accepting of other religions than the New England colonies, right? And the Puritans. We talked about how they were very intolerant. So William Penn establishes the colony of Pennsylvania, and he was actually willing to pay the Native Americans for the land that they needed. So as the colony of Pennsylvania grew and they needed more land, he was actually wanting to pay the Native Americans to get more land. But if you look at this quote right here by William Penn, it says, "We meet on the broad pathway of good faith and goodwill. No advantage shall be taken on either side, but all shall be openness and love. We are the same as if one man's body was to be divided into two parts." So what that basically means is William Penn looks at the Native Americans as human beings, right? And they have just as much right to the land as the colonists do. And they have just as much right to practice whatever religion they have as the colonists do. So when you think about the middle colonies, they were kind of middle of the road, right? When it came to religious tolerance and their relationship with the Native Americans, but they definitely had the better relation with the Native Americans than the Southern or the New England colonies. So these are just some of the tribes that lived in the middle colony areas. You have the Algonquin and the Iroquois, okay? They, like I said, are going to rely upon trade. Okay, they were not trying to make war with the colonists in the middle colonies, and they basically treated each other with respect, and the colonists tried to compensate the Native Americans for land that they needed. So hopefully you have a better idea of what it looked like in the middle colonies, and you can tell the difference between the middle colonies and the New England colonies and the Southern colonies.